So this is the Wednesday, May 5th, 2021 meeting of the Park Board. Shannon, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Latchford?
Here.
Mr. Freeze?
Here.
Mr. Lang?
Here.
Ms. Esper?
Here.
Thank you. The minutes from our previous meeting of April 21st were prepared and presented prior to the meeting. Unless there are any corrections, additions, or changes, do you have a motion to approve the minutes from April 21st?
I move that we accept the minutes from the previous meeting as printed.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Any project updates tonight?
Yes. Tonight, 2 teams of engineering students from Purdue Northwest and Purdue Hammond have designed 2
Testing. Is that
That's
okay?
better.
Yeah, that's much better.
2 teams of engineering students from Purdue have designed 2 automatic barriers to prevent sightseers from visiting the Pier Head Lighthouse during hazardous conditions. It has been brought to my attention that this is a significant hazard and should be addressed. This issue has gained attention throughout the Great Lakes region. As my reports have indicated, the professors and students of PNW are very interested in solving this problem. I think you will be very interested in the work of these students, not only impressed by their accomplishment in the true sense of engineering, but in their interest in the life-saving properties of this proposed mechanism that may be our only option to curtail any possible injury or death to the general public. Thank you. You may begin your presentations.
Okay, hello. I'm Karen Boy. I'll be sharing my screen.
Welcome.
Thanks. So, as I said, hello, I'm Karen Boy. I'm here with a group of 3 civil engineers and 1 mechanical engineer from Purdue University Northwest. We will be presenting our senior design, the Michigan City Pier Barrier Design. Our academic advisor was Professor Zhen-Young Zhang, and our industrial advisor was Ed Shen, the Michigan City Pier Superintendent. As you can see in these 2 images, we have on the left-hand side a beautiful image of this beautiful landmark, the Michigan City Pier. As you can see, the water looks calm. It looks like a great environment just to be with your friends and family and just spend great time at the pier. But on the right-hand side, we can see it also looks like a clear sky. It's not gloomy, not rainy, but the waves are extremely high and could be extremely hazardous if someone was on the pier at that specific moment. Here is a snippet of the CBS Chicago News reporting incident of last year, 2020. 2 children almost got swept away by the waves on the pier. And the only way they were able to save themselves was running from post to post until reaching the shoreline for safety. We are here to prevent this. We don't want this to happen anymore, and there has been other incidents as well, but this could be prevented. The site background is a little history about the pier. It was built in the year 1904 and has become a common attraction for tourists. The sidewalk, which is known as the catwalk, was used by the lighthouse keepers to access the lighthouse tower for 29 years. In 1933, the light on the East Pier was electrified, leading the catwalk to becoming no longer in use. With the catwalk being no longer in use, it was threatened with demolition. Local citizens rallied and succeeded in saving the landmark. Today, the pier is used for public enjoyment. This shows the importance of this landmark to its residents and tourists, and it's extremely important for us to keep its integrity. Our project description: the federal government owns the Michigan City Pier, which attracts visitors and anglers from all over. However, Michigan City is responsible for the safety of these visitors. During inclement weather and high winds, the waves of the Lake Michigan can become dangerous. There have been several times when the waves of Lake Michigan have swept people off the pier or come close to sweeping them off the pier. The problem is how to keep people off the pier during inclement weather. Our objective of this project was to design a barrier or warning system that will prevent or warn people from accessing the pier during inclement weather and at night. This barrier will also need to be able to withstand any forces it is subjected to by weather phenomenon and tourists, as well as hold up against the weather wear and tear inspired by being utilized outdoors along the shoreline of Lake Michigan. So the first thing we did was we met with the industrial advisor, Ed Shen, at the Michigan City Pier. The day we met him, it was a bit drizzly and it was just a little gloomy, but the waves were getting pretty high. We met with him at the pier. We discussed the dangers of the inclement weather in the pier. We discussed the constraints set by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. We discussed the importance of the pier to the public, including the fishermen, photographers, and tourists. I said earlier, this is a very beloved landmark for fishermen, photographers, and tourists. We discussed budget issues. We came up with alternative warning system ideas due to the constraints at that specific moment, and we took photographs of the pier.
And now I'm going to discuss the constraints. The constraints is the weather, public view, legal and liability concerns, budget, environmental considerations, and the United States Army Corps of Engineers.
Sorry, I think you froze. Oh.
So for the weather along Lake Michigan can be very unpredictable, changing from minute to minute. High winds and waves assault the pier continuously. The pier gets coated in ice in the winter, and sand from the beach is picked up in the wind and strips paint and coatings off of anything in its path. And on the side is a picture of a strip paint coatings from the sand. So next is public view. So the pier and lighthouse are cherished landmarks to the community, with valuable fishing spots to anglers, and it's a prime location for photographers year-round. There was one outcry from the community, and it has already occurred when discussing temporarily closing the pier to keep people safe. So legal and liability. So wording needed to be approved through the United States Army Corps of Engineers in Michigan City. Michigan City could be liable for injuries. And for the budget, Michigan City is currently very limited on funding. All designs, ideas will need to be well thought out to limit costs to the city. Funds can be found by donors or various grants. In the environmental considerations, there's a nearby zoo, and the zoo limits the ability to use sirens or other auditory notifications of dangerous conditions on the pier. A public marina and parks nearby, and to maintain the historic integrity of the lighthouse and catwalk. And on November 20th, 2020, we had a meeting with the United States Army Corps of Engineers representative, and during the meeting, we learned that boating on the pier is allowable, and the maximum boat size is a 1/2-inch hole. And we also discussed structural components and permits that will be needed. And one thing we took into consideration with our plan is whether or not our plan is injurious to the public.
Hello, my name's Jacob Hafer, and I'll be presenting some of the solutions our team came up with. These can be broken down into 3 categories. The physical barrier, weather-sensitive lighting, and informative signs. In regards to a physical barrier, after carefully evaluating all of the options, we determined the best location would be just before the staircase at the end of the boardwalk, before the beginning of the pier. The barrier itself was narrowed down to 2 models, the Liftmaster and Kia. We are also recommending the use of a 10-foot barrier arm and a barrier arm lock to help support the arm when it's in the down position. This is an AutoCAD drawing showing an overview of the proposed site at the stairs with the barrier and arm lock. The FEA analysis began. In order to ensure the barrier would hold up to weather and other forces, it was modeled so that FEA analysis could be performed. The analysis began with a mesh convergence study. This is done to ensure that the mesh used when analyzing the model is fine enough to produce consistently accurate results. The graph here shows the results of the mesh convergence with mesh size on the x-axis and deformation on the y-axis. This shows as the mesh size is reduced, the deformation gets larger until it levels off. The mesh was chosen to be as large as possible while still producing accurate results. Then multiple analyses were performed. Static tests were done to take into account forces from wind, ice, snow, and people. Fatigue tests were done to ensure the barrier could withstand repeated forces acting on it by the wind, and a modal analysis was done to identify the natural frequencies of the barrier. This is important because if the natural frequencies are too small, they can harmonize with the frequencies of the wind, producing catastrophic results. All of the FEA tests that were performed produced successful results. The static analysis for wind using worst-case conditions such as humidity and temperature with wind speeds of about 40 miles per hour still maintained a factor of safety of over 2. This means that the stresses would have to be at least twice as large to cause any permanent deformation in the metal. The fatigue analysis using average wind speed returned a factor of safety of 1.84, and the modal analysis showed a minimum natural frequency of 136 hertz, which is much larger than vibrations typically caused by wind. Our next potential solution is weather-sensitive lighting. This solution would utilize different colored lighting to indicate how safe it is to be on the pier. For example, green for all clear, yellow for use caution, and red for stay off. This lighting system would be controlled automatically with the use of a weather sensor and wave sensor, or adjusted remotely using the current control system used to adjust the signboards. As far as the weather sensors themselves, we came up with 3 alternatives, the Accurite, Logia, and Tempest weather stations. The team currently recommends the use of the Tempest weather system. This is due to the superior range, which would allow it to be mounted on the top of the lighthouse in the highest location available to get more accurate weather and wind readings. It does not rely on an external rotating part to measure the wind speed, so it is more likely to hold up in the freezing rain and snow without getting damaged. However, the Tempest is approximately 3 times more expensive than the other 2 options at about $300.
Solution 3 was informative sign analysis. The team looked at starting a warning system spanning from the parking lot to the pier entrance. These signs would be informative, telling you about the lights, what they mean, what it means when the gate is closed. We could potentially change the wording on the current reading board. During inclement weather, it should read no lifeguard on duty, danger, high waves on the pier, avoid walking on pier, and proceed at own risk. The signs in the reader should also emphasize the problem in detail. The informative signs have requirements. They have to inform the tourists of the dangers around the pier and the beach. It may be unknown to them that the weather conditions can change rapidly and endanger them. They need to explain what each color of the light fixture means and what precautions should be taken. They need to implement the signs at the bottlenecks to maximize the number of people that see them. They need to be large, eye-catching, and easy to read for everybody. They could potentially have a link on there to provide more detail online, and they need to have approval for all the language used on there. The environmental impact would be to maintain the historic integrity of the pier, lighthouse, and catwalk. It needs to maintain the clear view of the lighthouse at all times. It needs to enhance public safety while considering accessibility when the barrier is not in use for like the fishermen's equipment and other maintenance. It needs to consider nearby zoo and the health of its animals, such as loud noises. It needs to consider the public marina and parks nearby. We did a cost analysis of solution 1. The barrier arm, you can see the range of cost in that, same as the parking arm, the barrier arm lock, which would prevent the arm from swaying and breaking. The installation and maintenance of each of these must be discussed with the manufacturer or the dealers. The cost analysis solution 2 shows that the Tempest weather station or system cost is $329. The Logia is $119.99, and the AccuRite was up to $119.99. The maintenance and installation also needs to be talked to by the manufacturers. In conclusion, every objective was fulfilled, and as previously stated, we are faced with many constraints and changing designs, but they were all analyzed and overcome. The barrier was designed and tested on Ansys for FEA analysis, so it is well equipped for any weather forces it may be faced with at the pier. A sufficient warning system was proposed to prevent any further incidents on the pier. Our recommendation is a chosen weather sensor was the Tempest one. Everything is ready to be submitted to the United States Army Corps of Engineers and the Michigan City legal team for approval. For future work, needs to consider consulting with the computer engineer to see if the automated barrier can be programmed to react with the weather sensors so it can close when the lights change. Needs to consider that the needed work to have remote access to override the barrier and weather sensors so that way the employee of the Parks and Rec department can close it if they feel it should be closed. It also needs to consider to consult an electrical engineer to work with the light fixtures on the catwalk, also programming them to react with the weather sensors. We would like to thank Professors Zhang, Ed Shin, Professor A for continuous insight and help throughout this project. We would also like to thank the Michigan City Parks and Recreation Department for this opportunity you have given us to present our project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite a clear, concise, thorough, data-focused project and an approach to the project. I want to thank you guys for taking an interest in helping us solve, a dangerous issue that we have that we've been trying to manage for years, as everyone knows. I would open this up for questions for any board member. Questions or comments?
I just have one question. I was observing the arm that would come down and stop people from walking along the pier. That is correct?
Yes.
Now, what happens when the arm goes down? And I've seen this time and time again when we have put up sawhorses across there at that same area, and people jump off the pier onto the sand and continue to walk on, get back up on the pier, and they have blindsided all the work that's been done. Is there any way of preventing that? In other words, is it possible to put that barrier farther down the pier so people would have to literally walk into the water to get around it. You understand what I'm saying? Because people, over the years, I've lived here all my life, and I've seen people out there under the most ridiculous conditions that you can imagine. And you showed the video of the 2 kids, and many of us have seen that also, and they're lucky that they're alive. And I often wonder where the parents were when those kids were out there. But I congratulate you, all of you, on the work that you have done. I mean, you put a lot of time in on this, and we certainly appreciate that. But do you have any idea how we could prevent people from walking in by way of the beach?
We did look at a resolution of putting the barrier farther onto the pier, but with the pier changing elevation, it was hard to design something like that without spending a lot of money or looking much further into it.
Gotcha.
We can also alternatively put ropes in those specific areas so they don't jump on. I mean, obviously they could jump over the rope, but we definitely consider that because it's easy to access the pier, obviously, through the shoreline. Also, that's why we added on the signage to proceed at own risk. That implies that if they proceed, you know, they're responsible for their actions, and, you know, just trying to warn them beforehand.
Exactly.
I would have to say I agree to that too, Mr. Lang. When I got the phone call from the Channel 7 News that there were people on the pier and could barely get off of that, they wanted to know what can Michigan City do? What is Michigan City going to do to prevent this behavior? And I'm thinking that there are people that are going to cross barricades, they're going to push barricades over. But I think by having the arm or something similar to that with the lights or something similar to that, I think it gives one more layer of protection and information that this is not a good place to be walking in hazardous times. Is it possible that these anemometers and weather sensors are possibly able to be purchased right here in Michigan City at Dwyer Instruments? Do any of you students know that?
That I know of, I don't know, but we did, in our report, we provided references to manufacturers that you can get those sensors from that specific company. I haven't looked into it, but okay. You did?
Yes, Dahlia.
I was just wondering, I know you were trying to avoid sound, but if we had the catwalk lit red, and if someone goes up there, the sound may be directed more towards the water instead of towards, land, maybe that would help, flashing light and an alarm to kind of say, you're not supposed to be here. So I don't know if that's possible, or is that too much noise?
We just didn't want to put the animals at risk. They're really close by. So we didn't, consider it for their health and safety.
Any other questions from the board or the public? Or comments?
Mr. President, this is Mayor Perry. If I may make a comment.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with what you did. It's a great job as far as keeping people from going around the barrier. There are too many human beings that thrive on breaking the rules or trying to go around them. It's very difficult to stop them if it's even possible. Council Lady Zigas had a good thought on that possibly something simple like a motion sensor that would be activated when the system is in operation that would result, if activated, the motion sensor on a not real loud, but loud enough to startle the people and possibly embarrass them to going back, reminding them that they've traveled where they should not travel. I think that's a good thought, Ms. Sig. It's very good. But I would also say that you've done what we asked you to do. Your system protects the city of Michigan City from liability, which in this world we live in is an enormous factor. So I thank you very much. I'm very impressed with what you did. And I will do everything within my power as the mayor to fund this and put this in place, provided there will be a condition that there is a plaque attached to it that salutes you, the designers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Perry. So I think these are all steps that we take. We've put, there's no one solution, but when you start layering solutions together, it could become effective at deterring people from going out there. And that's where we are. We've put signs out there. Then we had life rings that are mounted, and then the red LED message boarding. And this could be the next layer, just to, maybe the first sign stopped one person, and then the life rings may stop 3 others, and the LED might stop a few more, and this will stop some additional people. So again, I saw people clapping. I think we're all thrilled with the amount of time, effort, thought, data collection, and the presentation was top notch. So I know personally, thank you very much. You've enlightened us and gave us some more to consider when trying to prevent more deaths and accidents from the pier. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's students like you that help Purdue maintain the reputation it has.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. We are very glad to be here and present our project to you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen, Jacob, Aaron, James. Appreciate everything.
Next, we have another presentation from the PNW students.
Hello, my name is Dylan Hayes, and I'll be sharing my presentation, or our presentation, with you. Let's see. Can we all see it?
Yes.
We good? All right. So I'm Dylan Hayes with the Purdue Northwest Dynamic Solutions team from Purdue Northwest Westville campus. We were charged with designing a barrier for public safety at a pier. Along with me is my teammate Mary Helton, and unfortunately Samuel Covert was not able to make it to this meeting tonight, but he also did help with the creation of this barrier. Our advisor was Dr. Sheng-Young Chang from PNW, and our industrial advisor was Mr. Shin. The Michigan City Pier is a popular tourist attraction, but oftentimes it becomes dangerous to walk on because of high waves, high winds, ice, and debris, as mentioned by the previous group. The visitors of the pier could be seriously injured from these conditions, and the board came looking to find a solution for this problem. The objective of this project was to protect the public by designing a barrier for the Washington Park Pier in Michigan City. We wanted to protect people from traversing the pier during hazardous weather conditions to avoid being swept off. And we wanted this system to be automated so that the barrier could function at any time. It also needed to withstand external forces from the weather phenomenon and particles such as dirt and sand, which are common on the beach. As far as for our environmental impact, it could have some slight negative impacts as far as for how to power it from the coal plant or the different types of lubrications that would be used in mechanical parts, which could wash into the Lake Michigan, but both factors of these are very small and dismal and would contribute very minorly to an environmental impact. As far as for our constraints for the project, COVID-19 was a large constraint as we were not able to meet in person for this project, and we were not able to access any software on campus. Along with that, the United States Army Corps of Engineers posed a constraint where we needed to get permitting to be able to enact this plan on the pier. The barrier needed to be easily open and closed when needed, remotely, ideally, or automatically, as we've done it. And it must be constructed in a way in which, when it's closed, it doesn't trap people who are already on the pier before getting off. Time was, I think, our biggest constraint. However, though, in the first semester, we didn't have a very good direction for the project. And we spent the majority of the semester doing research on what we could do to prevent people from going onto the pier. So the spring semester was our time for our design analysis.
Based off the research that we did in fall 2020, the mechanical linkage was designed to be a 4-bar Grashoff crank rocker mechanism. The 4-bar linkage needed to meet the Grashoff condition to ensure the proper mobility of the linkage. This condition was met by the equation shortest link plus longest link is greater than the ground link plus the coupler. You can see on the left the 3D model that was done in SolidWorks, and on the right is a 2D model with all of the dimensions, and this is going to be made out of stainless steel. From the design, we did linkage analysis using R.L. Norton linkage software provided by P&W, which proved that the crank worked in the way that it needed to move the barrier arm. Oh, the video isn't working because Samuel usually does the presentation. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Otherwise, you would see how the linkage works. It goes in a 360-degree while it moves the barrier arm in a 90-degree fashion. The software also gave us the shaking force in the X and the Y direction, and the magnitude and the shaking angle, and the torque values experienced on each link. And on the right is a graph as a sample showing our analysis. A generic model was made in fall 2020 to give the customer a general idea of how the design looked and to give us an initial idea of what we wanted to design. The barrier housing is 4 foot high and 1 foot square, with the barrier arm itself being 10 foot length. The length of the barrier arm is ideal because it does not cover the entire width of the pier. This gives enough clearance for easy access off the pier in events of hazardous weather conditions that can happen in a moment's notice. The 3D geometrical model of the barrier arm gate was designed with individual parts created and assembled in SolidWorks. The cylindrical housing for the barrier arm will be made of ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene, or UHMW, due to its high abrasion and wear resistance to the elements found at the pier. The barrier arm will be made of aluminum due to its lightweight and corrosion-resistant properties. The brackets and the fasteners that are attached to the barrier arm are going to be made out of steel plated with yellow dichromite as opposed to stainless steel, because aluminum in direct contact with stainless steel causes corrosion over time. The motor housing is capped, The motor housing is capped on the top with tamper-resistant fasteners and an access door with a lock on the back for easy access for maintenance. At the bottom of the housing will be a base plate that will be welded to the housing itself and be bolted onto the pier. All components on the outside are made of stainless steel due to its corrosion resistance. After the model was made, 5 configurations of the barrier arm were created to conduct analysis. All configurations were made out of aluminum and measured approximately 128 inches in length. Configurations 1 and 2 had hollow rectangular cross sections measuring 4 inches by 1.5 inches. Configurations 3, 4, and 5 had solid rectangular cross sections measuring various lengths. Ansys Modal Analysis, the study of dynamic properties of systems in the frequency domain, was conducted on these 5 configurations, finding 6 natural frequencies and vibration modes. Configuration 1, 2, and 3 were chosen to conduct impulsive analysis due to their higher natural frequencies. The higher natural frequencies, the better the structural design from the vibration control perspective. Impulsive analysis was conducted in explicit dynamics from the Ansys workbench. In the analysis, initial velocity was applied to the barrier arm to simulate forces found on the pier. This velocity disappeared in a very short period of time. In this case, it was 0.15 seconds. And deformation was recorded from the simulation for each configuration and compared. Configuration 1 was found to have the lowest deformation. And on the next slide is a short video of the results on the bar model.
Oh.
Nope.
Unfortunately, it won't be able to be played because
if the video was working, you could see the bar oscillating side to side.
Yeah.
That's okay. After the Ansys analysis, a comprehensive bill of materials was created for customer use and further work on this project. The vendor part numbers are provided for the purchase items for convenience. An exploded view was created for the barrier arm assembly to clearly show how it's intended to be constructed. All parts are expected to be manufactured, have 2D detailed drawings that are included on our final report, Appendix D. And if you guys would like a copy, we can email that to you. And Dylan's going to wrap us up.
So for the automated control system, it allows the barrier to be deployed at any time of the day without any human input based on weather conditions. For our project, a Arduino Mega 2560 from the company Elegoo was used to control the motion of the barrier. The Arduino decides whether or not the gate should be lowered based on the information retrieved from the National Weather Service for the area surrounding the pier. In order to ensure that the Arduino is always able to retrieve that information, it is connected to the internet through a GSM shield, which allows the Arduino to access the mobile network via a SIM card. On the left, you can see is the Elegoo Arduino Mega 2560, and on the right is our GSM shield, which allows the Elegoo to connect to the internet. For this project, creating a full-scale automation system would have been costly and was not feasible within the scope of our senior design class. So to reduce the cost of the automation system, some of the more expensive pieces were substituted with parts that could perform the same role but are much more affordable and lack only minor attributes from their full-scale counterparts. For the full-scale design, ideally a programmable logic controller, or PLC, would be used to automate the system, as PLCs are often used for industrial machine automation, whereas Arduinos are more used for prototypes and small one-off electronics. The motor, a full-scale design would use a servo motor with at least a 7 Newton-meter torque holding capacity, as this exceeds the amount of torque acting on the system of 6.7 Newton-meters, which was found in our linkage analysis. Ideally, the motor would have 12 Newton meters of torque or more, though, to provide a margin of safety around the movement of the arm. As a safety measure, the full-scale model would also include a photoelectric beam sensor with a range of 25 feet or more to determine if any obstructions were underneath the arm. However, for our module, a IR brake beam sensor would be used, as we didn't need as much of a range in order to sense the braking of the beam. Our project, the PLC, was also replaced by an Elegoo Mega 2560, as they both provide the same function. However, the Mega 2560 was much more affordable and had an extensive set of tutorials for nearly any application. The servo used in the model would also not have to provide nearly as much torque as the full-scale design, so a SG90 micro servo was used instead. To automate the activation of the gate, 3 primary functions were used. On the left is a function named receive with start and end markers, which looks for a key term in the data received from the National Weather Service. To the right is a function named request, which requests information from the National Weather Service. And then on the bottom is a function named show new data, which then would send the signal to the rest of the system to lower the gate if it were to find the key term that the receive with start and end markers function found. In this case, that word is the word actual, which indicates a weather event going on the pier. For automating it, the following function runs on an operational basis. Every 5 minutes, the function makes a request to the National Weather Service, parses that data for the keyword active, and if it finds it, it lowers the gate. While the gate is lowering, it checks the status of the IR brake beam sensor for every 1 degree of rotation, and then adds a 4 millisecond delay to each to slow the motor down and allow for a smooth operation of the arm. If the beam is broken at any time during the motion of the arm then reverses its direction and waits 30 seconds before attempting to lower again. However, if the keyword is not found, the gate will just return to its vertical position, which will then allow it to be open. For powering the control unit, a 9-volt 1 amp power source would be sufficient for the Arduino. However, the GSM Shield will need to have its own 5-volt 2 amp power source, as it can draw up to 2 amps during a transmission burst. The GSM Shield also takes a standard size SIM card for connection to mobile data. This SIM should be reloadable so that the device can always stay connected. With the SIM card, you would get an access point name, or APN, along with the username and password for that access point name, which would need to be manually entered into the what's called a .ino, or it's the code file for the Arduino, and then uploaded to it via USB. On the GSM Shield, there are also 2 lights that tell what the shield is currently doing. One is the net light, which will always be on while the shield is turned on, and then the other is a status light. If the status light is off, then the device is not running. If it flashes once every 800 milliseconds, or about once every second, it means that the chip is running but not connected to mobile data. If the light flashes every 3 seconds, the chip is connected to mobile data, and if it's flashing quickly, then it is currently accessing the network. As far as for recommendations for future work, we really like to see more groups from P&W, more senior design groups working on this project to make a better barrier design. Some recommendations that we have for future work are to replace our 4-bar linkage power delivery system with a gear train system, replace the Arduino with a PLC, or programmable logic controller, and to add an electrical engineering student to this project. By replacing the 4-bar linkage with the gear train, we would end up with a more durable and stable power delivery system that can operate smoothly and continuously in much more adverse weather conditions. The replacement of the Arduino PLC was recommended because our PLCs are more used in industrial automation, and the additional electrical engineering student would be helpful in order to design a better automation system, as this automation system is more of just a groundworks for what we'd like to see this product or project become in the future. For our material cost estimate, each section of the barrier was broken down into individual pieces that could either be purchased or manufactured, with the minimum price for each component listed. The price of all the barrier components combined, along with the electrical components, totaled to be a minimum of $1,531.01. For our milestone log, this dates and documents everything that we did in the project, as far as for our learning objectives, which we did through the fall semester of trying to figure out the best possible solution for keeping people off the pier, all the way to creating a software And what we wanted to do was create a physical model of the gate and barrier towards the second semester. Our timeline then dates all of those milestones that we accomplished. I would like to thank you all for taking the time out of your park board meeting to listen to our presentation of our senior design project for protecting the public at the Michigan City East Lighthouse Pier. I'd also like to thank Professor Zhang and Mr. Shin for allowing us to do this project and to really work on a project that has such a noticeable impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan, and thank you, Mary, for that presentation. Interesting to see how the automation feature can work, and that's obviously a high priority for us as well. So, again, a very thoughtful, data-driven approach to helping us solve a problem that is ongoing and has been historical, and we're very interested in. So thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the board or public?
Just one comment, Mr. President. Just so much horsepower is so impressive. But I guess that's the Purdue way.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, again, I just will, yes, thank, as Dahlia has mentioned, pointed out, just another wonderful presentation, well thought out, well documented, and will help us in the future to solve our problem with the pier. So the time and effort spent is well appreciated, and hopefully when we can implement some further safety measures, we can memorialize these two teams and their contribution to helping us solve this problem. Unless there are any other questions or comments, again, well, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us tonight. And for the seniors, good luck in your future careers. By what we've seen tonight, you won't need much luck because it's pretty evident you're well on your way.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That means a lot.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Great
Thank you, both groups.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you.
job.
Thank you, Sheng Young.
Thank you.
All right, is that the end of the presentation, Mr. Shin?
Unless anybody has any comments, but I would like to thank the professors as well. I think these students are learning quite a bit from these guys. Was there any thoughts on the location for this pier barrier?
As far as for this barrier, I think one of the great things about our design is that since it's a standalone barrier, it can be placed anywhere that you would like on the pier. I know that Mr. Lang was talking about earlier about putting the pier or the barrier up more towards where the waterfront is so that they can't go around it, which was funny when he was saying that, because I had thought of that while we were designing this. Is like it's a lot easier to just go around the sand if you have a barrier that's right at the beginning of the pier. So I think it could be placed anywhere that it would really need to be.
Now, this torque analysis that I saw earlier, was that, I might have missed that, was that in relation to the connection of the arm and the machine? Was there an allowable stress for that? For instance, in a torque analysis, you have the force times the distance of the arm. If you have a 300-pound wave hitting that arm times 10 feet, that's 3,000 foot-pounds. Is that going to withstand that?
I think that I don't know if it would withstand something like that. That's something that future groups would have to be able to tackle on this project, is making sure that it could withstand wave forces like that. As far as for just day-to-day operation, though, I don't think it would have any problems. But it definitely needs to, that's another reason why we wanted to have the gear train implemented, was because that would allow for a higher holding torque and to be able to have a more stable design.
Anything else, Mr. Shin?
I think that's a very good presentation. Both of them were very good.
Yes.
I would just like to say thank you.
I echo those comments. So,
Ed, can I say one thing?
Certainly.
So I'm on the Hammond campus, but I run the senior design courses. I just want to thank everybody for giving the students the opportunity to work on problems. Real world. It's not the same as looking in the back of the book. things,
Amen.
And as we know, out on the pier and out on the dunes, we have another project. The weather, it's like Chicago too. The weather changes every day, and you never know what's going to be. So,
yes,
things that you thought of or you assumed are not always correct. So that's the way life is, and I think it's a good opportunity. And I hope we can do more, with you and other people in the area.
Likewise, thank you. Hopefully we can
well said.
Partner
Okay.
in the future. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to old business. Accepting quotes for the Merriam grass. So first we have to close the submission period. So are there anyone here to submit any quotes? Seeing none, we will close the submission period and then open the quotes that we have received.
Thank you. We received one quote from Applied Ecological Services. It was received today at 1:24 p.m. The California Avenue price, $13,300. Louisiana, $11,000 even. Georgia Avenue, $13,400. Illinois Avenue, $6,000. The second and final quote was received yesterday at 12:20 p.m. from Cardno. Their bid price for California Avenue is $10,950. For Louisiana Avenue, $9,450. For Georgia Avenue, $11,000. And for Illinois Avenue, $6,675. And I would ask the board to allow me to review the two quotes and make sure all their paperwork is in order. And then I would bring a recommendation back to the board at your next meeting. The plan is to plant this grass in the fall, so we've got plenty of time.
Thank you, Shannon. Any questions or comments? If none, do we have a motion to table accepting these quotes until our next meeting to allow us to analyze them?
I would so move that we table the quotes for planting of the Merriam grass until a time where Ms. Eason and Mr. Shin can review those quotes and give a recommendation to the board.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries.
Shannon, it does appear, though, that they are well within our budgeted amount. So unlike in the fall, when I think the quotes were well over the budgeted amount.
That's correct.
That's a positive sign. So we'll get this project done.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Any table business tonight?
No, sir.
We'll move right into new business then. It's the sculpture placement in Washington Park.
Thank you. As some of you know, I serve as the treasurer of the Michigan City Public Art Committee. The art committee purchased a sculpture called Off the Diet. It's got kind of a fish theme. It was included in your packet. It's been displayed on Franklin Street for the past couple of years on Franklin and 7th. I mean, it's an extremely heavy piece, and just by the nature of the shape and size of it, it's got some wobble to it. So when we did our fall inspections, we determined that it was unsafe for public display on a sidewalk area. And the art committee asked if the board would allow us to place it somewhere in Washington Park. So you should have a packet with renderings of different locations. There's 11 members on the art committee, and they all have different ideas about where it should go in Washington Park. So they presented them all. My concern from the park side is I would not like to see this anywhere near the splash park, because when it's open and when the zoo's open, you're going to have kids climbing on it again. And our thought is to put it up against a wall where we can do a back-mounted bracket, but out of a walkway. So the two locations that I personally would prefer from the parks side would be either in the gardens at the senior center, or possibly at the greenhouse. But I think North Point and the zoo the Oasis have too much traffic.
All right, thank you, Shannon. Any questions or comments from the board?
I was just looking at all of these and just offering an opinion. And I understand where Shannon said you don't want this where there is a lot of foot traffic, particularly where young people might decide to climb on that. And if we put it where the old greenhouse was, essentially that is the area where people are coming from Lakeshore Drive, or when I say coming from Lakeshore Drive, either way to enter the park. That's where you would probably have the most visibility for it. And again, that's just an opinion. That would be the park technically called the greenhouse area.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Any other questions or comments? I thought just the name of the piece by Sunset Grill was kind of ironic.
Yeah. You're very right.
Any questions or comments from the public? I would agree with Mr. Lang. It's the most highly visible spot would be the greenhouse. And if we're going to rule out the other two because of the high volume of people, I would probably lean towards the greenhouse as well. Shannon, so is the request in front of the park board tonight to select a location?
It is, however, as I said, the city owns the piece, so there's not a huge hurry, but I don't like to see public art sitting in a garage. We paid for it, so I'd like to get it placed as soon as possible.
I'd be willing to, unless someone thinks we should table it, I think we could probably just decide tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Any recommendations or motions?
If no one else has an opinion on it, I would so move that we place this art off the diet as it is in our diagram, or actually photograph, to move this to the area of the greenhouse where there would be probably the greatest amount of visibility and the least amount of foot traffic, so that would get rid of the danger of someone climbing.
I would second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is the city's tip policy.
Yes, so if the board recalls, we recently put in a point of sale system on the beverage cart at the golf course, which brought up with the controller's office the procedures for tracking tips and doing our daily reporting. So the controller asked the park board to consider passing the city's tip policy, which she provided to you in your packets as a sample policy. And it just requires employees that make more than $20 a month to report that back to the controller's office, and it gets added into their pay. So in essence, they're paying taxes on it.
Thank you very much. Did you say this is an existing city policy?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
However, we have our own policy manual, so you would need to approve it.
Certainly. Any questions or comments from the board?
Is that the only location in consideration here? I was trying to figure out who and how many people would be earning tips working for the Park and Recreation Department. Is it just the golf course? Or other areas?
Yeah, it's possible at the zoo as well. So it would cover both locations.
Okay.
Those are the two concession operations we operate.
Any other questions or comments? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, and if there are no other issues, we have a motion to approve the Michigan City, Indiana tip reporting policy for Washington, for the Park Department.
I would so move that we adopt the city's tip policy into the Parks and Recreation Department.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries.
All right, next up is to ratify a letter of support for the Michigan City Sanitary District sustain our Great Lakes grant application for the Adams Park Wetland project.
Can you excuse me for 1 minute?
Certainly.
Apologize, my furnace turned on and I can't hear. So the sanitary district contacted me to seek a letter of support from the park board for their grant application. However, they only gave me a couple of days notice and their grant was due on April 19th. So I spoke with President Latchford and asked if I could just submit a letter myself as the assistant superintendent and then come back and have the board ratify it at a later date. That did meet the grant requirements. And just very quickly, the sanitary district is wanting to put a stormwater control system in the wetlands in Adams Park. It could also act as a mitigation bank for redevelopment, and it'll also help the drainage of our park and baseball fields. So it's really a win-win for all the agencies involved. So I would just ask that the board ratify this letter so we can submit that to the grantor if they ask.
Thank you very much, Shannon. And thank you for taking the initiative. She called me about this situation and tight timeline, great project. So we went ahead and took this route to get it done. The letter is very good. It describes exactly what's happening. So thank you for taking the initiative, Shannon.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Shannon, I just want to thank you for doing this. Reading over the last several months what our state administration, our so-called environmental people or lack of environmental people in the State House passing these measures to literally get rid of wetlands in the state of Indiana. So anything that we can do to maintain them, I am all for that. And I thank you for putting your hat in the ring to get this going. Certainly is appreciated.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions from the public? Great. Seeing no other questions or comments, do we have a motion to ratify the letter of support?
I would so move that we ratify this letter of support for the Michigan City Sanitary District's sustain our Great Lakes grant application.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Great. Next up, we have Soccer in the Sand, a major event license agreement.
Actually, there's Pullman Park prior to that.
Thank you.
So the Pullman Park license agreement is just for events that request the use of Pullman. We've had this for many years. However, I did have our attorney, Nuremberg, review it. She made a few changes. And later up on the agenda, you're going to see an event request for Pullman, which required this license. So I'd just like the board to approve this new form of contract so we can use it at Pullman.
Thank you for that explanation. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve the Tallman Park license agreement?
I would so move that we okay the Tallman Field license agreement as it has been reevaluated by our attorney.
I would second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
All right, item E on new business is Soccer in the Sand major event license agreement.
This is a returning event. I want to say they're in their 8th or 9th year of coming to Washington Park. It's a great event. It brings in about 4,000 players and spectators. The park does not do anything for the event other than sanitize the area, and they've always left everything neat and clean, and they're a pleasure to work with, so I would recommend approval of the 2021 Soccer in the Sand tournament and license agreement.
Thank you, Shannon. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, this has become a routine event, and we welcome them back because, as Shannon mentioned, it is such a great event. Any questions from the public? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve the Soccer in the Sand major event license agreement.
I so move that we approve the Soccer in the Sand major license agreement for Saturday and Sunday, July 17th and July 18th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries.
All right, next is LPA Counseling 5K major event license agreement.
This is a new event to Michigan City this year, an exciting event that combines a 5K with a bicycle ride, and I'll let Mr. Pincus kind of explain what it is and answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, this is going to be our second annual bicycle ride. We had our first annual last year, and this year we're calling it Strides Against Suicide and Overdose. We're a counseling firm, and we get numbers of dozens and dozens of clients per year who don't have any insurance, perhaps because they lost their job or can't afford the copay or can't afford. And we have always had to turn people away because of their financial status, but especially because of COVID, there are more and more indigent people who are in desperate need of counseling. So we've created this event to provide a 5K starting with 10 miles and going up to 100 miles. And then we're hoping to raise money via registration and donations so that we can continue to help dozens of people get the counseling they need, and both young people as well as adults.
Thank you, Mr. Pincus. Any questions or comments from the board? So I could get some more clarity on the event itself. The cause is worthy, and thank you for describing the need and what the proceeds will be used for. That's very helpful. The event itself is on September 18th, and you'll have there's a 5K race and a bicycle ride.
the 5K race is being organized and run by a professional running company in Chicago, which will be providing timing chips and times for the runners. The run is scheduled to go off at 9 a.m. And then people who don't want to run or can't run but would like to walk will be leaving after the runners take off through a course mapped out in Washington Park. The running events, we have the 100-milers and the 60-milers will be heading west down towards Valparaiso and back up in a loop. The 60-milers will, so they will take off at 8 o'clock in the morning and will be returning, plus or minus between 11 and 11:30. And then the 100-milers will then do 40 miles riding out to New Buffalo and back. At 11 o'clock, the 25-milers and the 40-milers will be headed east, and they will ride to New Buffalo and back. And then at 11:30, the 10-milers will take off and just go straight down Long Beach Road and turn around and come back to Washington Park.
Thank you for that detail. Questions or comments from the board?
I just have one question out of curiosity. The bike ride is covering many, many, many miles. How do you go about securing a safe pathway for all of these riders?
Well, we're going to have a car leading each one of the rides. We're going to have the course. Each ride is going to be on apps for the riders. So on Garmin or Map My Ride. And then we also will have signs and or arrows painted on the street to show riders where they're going to be turning, and we'll have stops along the way, providing both water as well as refreshments for the riders.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Shannon, I have just a few, and maybe just a list, logistical in nature. Does this need to be contingent upon Board of Works approval for the 5K? And have they provided a map of the 5K route?
So we still haven't worked out the details. That's why most of this contract's blank. We don't have the fees determined yet. In the absence of Michelle, I have taken over major events, and I'm working on about 20 of them right now. So depending on, yes, what other city streets they use, they will need Board of Works approval. So that's a good point, if you can make your motion contingent upon that.
So is that something that once we get that, I was told, the reason why I didn't present the map today, Shannon, I was told that we didn't have to have that to you this evening because the event is still a number, 5 months out.
Right, right. So this is an essence.
We also need to.
Yeah, I'll work with Holly on getting all the logistics planned out and getting the other approvals that you need. We just wanted to kind of get this on the books to save the dates because we have so many event requests this year.
So would it be
yes, and we greatly appreciate you getting assigned the agenda as early as you did.
So could we give this some sort of contingent approval, since there's a lot of, I understand the need to secure the dates, but it seems as though, would it be premature for us to approve the contract since there are many open items?
Well, I think when you approve the contract with them, you're giving them the license for the day, but all of the requirements are outlined in that agreement.
Okay, good point. Any other questions from the board or the public? If not, if we could entertain a motion with the contingency with Board of Works approval and satisfying all the requirements of the license agreement.
I would make that motion that we approve the major event license agreement for LPA Counseling and their 5K Bike-a-thon charity fundraiser to take place on September 18th, 2021. This would be contingent on Board of Works approval and satisfying all of the requirements within this license agreement.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Very worthwhile project.
Thank you.
Right, Run for Preston is next on the agenda.
This is another great event returning to Washington Park this year. I don't believe there's any changes over last year, but Chris Kaiser is here to explain the event and answer any questions you may have.
Welcome back. Can you unmute?
Sorry, I started my video but not mute sound, sorry. Well, thank you for taking this request. We are very excited that we'll be able to hopefully have the run this year, because last year, like most events, it was canceled. So this would make it our 9th annual Running for Preston 5K, 10K, with the proceeds going to pediatric cancer research at Riley's. There's no changes to the course or any of those details. The date we're requesting is Saturday, October 2nd. And we do, previous to COVID, we had a staggered start for the 2 events. We do have, plans in place to follow any guidelines, if there's any at that time, if need be. And other than that, our next step is to go to the Board of Works, but this was our first step just to make sure we had the date correct and available before we moved on. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions or comments? No, this is as Shannon mentioned, very worthwhile, and it's the routine and the professionalism that you bring to the event obviously makes it very easy for us to review and approve. So thank you for all your work and effort in this.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Sure. Yeah, if there are no other questions or comments from the board or public, do we have a motion to approve the Run for Preston event contingent upon Board of Work approval?
I would so move that we okay the Running for Preston agreement. This is contingent on Board of Works approval, but other than that, an excellent, worthwhile project that you've run for several years, and I'm very proud to and make the motion to accept the run on October the 2nd, 2021.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next up is Run Wild for the Zoo.
This is another returning event to Washington Park. It's run by Johnny Stimley of the Zoo Society, and it's a fundraiser for the Zoo Society. The requested date this year is Sunday, July 11th from 7 a.m. to noon, and they use the tennis shelter. And the request is to waive the fees because it benefits our zoo.
Thank you, Shannon. Any questions or comments from the board or public? I could comment. I've participated in this event many times, and it's well run. It's a lot of fun. A lot of runners, hundreds of runners. Difficult course is my only complaint. Hills and sand.
Oh.
If there are no questions or comments, do we have a motion to approve the Run Wild for the Zoo on July 11th?
I would so move that we approve the Run Wild for the zoo. Also, in that motion to waive the parking fees for the participants and the shelter rental fee.
I would second.
Before we move on, has this been approved by the Board of Works, or does it need to be contingent upon Board of Works approval?
I'm not sure. It's been to Board of Works yet, so maybe.
Why don't we make it contingent and that way?
Yes, I'll be happy to add. This would be based on the contingency, the approval from the Board of Works.
Thank you.
I would second with that addition.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, moving right along, we have the zoo animal placement and acquisition request.
The Oregon?
It is. Welcome.
Okay. All right. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight and explaining this.
No problem. I gave you guys the form again and try to be as descriptive as I could. The only change that we want to place the 2 mute swans due to aggression issues. We moved them from the upper Avery down to the alligator yard because it was empty. That didn't change the aggression issues. So for the benefit of the animals, the public, and the keepers, we feel that they deserve a bigger, better pool than we can offer them. So that way we can also bring back the gators. The only difference is we get the gators on loan from the Chicago Herp Society. They don't have the usual 2 4-footers. So we're looking at possibly 5 2-footers, which are just about 24 inches long. With that big exhibit, we're going to need more than just 2, or you won't see them. But the agreement would be we take the gators in like we have the last few years. With 5, they will pick them up this fall. And then hopefully next year we'll go back to our usual 4-footers until we can get a new house built for to keep gators all season without having to move them to the cat house, which is more stressful for them down there. It's harder to take care of them. It wastes water because the pool is set up that we don't actually have a filtration system. It is not on our 5-year plan, but because of COVID, all that kind of just got pushed 2 years back. So we just had permission to move ahead with placing the swans as a donation because they are invasive. Not a lot of people want swans, especially mutes. And then to bring in the gators on loan.
Thank you.
Try to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for Jamie? Comments from the public either?
I would like to make a comment. Just the fact that I would like to say what a nice job Jamie does with rotating the animals and taking care of them. I've been observing the zoo quite often, and Jamie, you're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you. Definitely a passion.
Certainly is. I would just like to, again, compliment you on your documentation for the reasons and explanations as to how this helps and benefits the zoo and the animals. You always keep that in mind. So it makes our decision much easier when it's presented in advance and well documented. So thank you for doing that. If there are no other questions or comments, we'll entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that we approve of this animal placement and acquisition request.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck. All right, next up is the Driftwood Skateboarding Competition event request.
Yes, you should have received an explanation of the event in your packets, along with the Tallman Park license agreement, which was, again, reviewed and approved by Attorney Nuremberg. Mr. Zielinski from Driftwood Collective is here tonight to explain his event and answer any questions you may have. Well, he was on here.
Yeah,
I'm here.
Oh, there he is.
Yep.
Okay. There you are, Jeff. So I've spoken with him about this event. I think it's a great event to showcase our skate park and get us onto his circuit as one of his events, just to help promote the sport and bring some interest to the young kids and give them something great to do in Michigan City this year. The date is June 12th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Jeff?
Well, thank you so much. And I do want to say thank you for all the correspondence too. Shannon's been a huge help. So from a public side, she really helped me out and kind of get everything worked out. So thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
My name is Jeff Zielinski, and I started the Driftwood Collective as a 501c3 organization about 6 years ago. The idea first came up when we had a lot of failing skate parks in the region, and we wanted to raise money for them. So we started raising money and hosting. We thought, hey, let's do events. So we started our first one over in Hammond, and the first time we did it, we had over 100 people show up. We said we really have to turn this into a circuit and kind of travel throughout the region and make sure that all the public skate parks have some sort of utilization mechanism. You know, if there's anything that the kids look forward to, it's the big game, whether it's baseball, football, soccer, basketball, or skateboarding, bicycle riding, anything. This gives them the motivation for that. Without that, they're practicing each and every day, but they're never being pushed to their full potential. And I think that's where you see a lot of fallout in a lot of sports. What I absolutely love is the skate park. You never have to tell the kids, you know, go and practice. They're always doing it, but to push themselves to the next level and, you know, really get the benefits of the sport and the joy of the sport and kind of the relationships that you get and the friendships that you make when you're growing up. These events kind of bring everyone together. They showcase the need. It's one of the most utilized pieces of equipment in any town, but yet you don't often see that because everyone comes at a different time. So this is a way to bring everybody together and host the event for them. We keep the barrier to entry low. We make sure that, you know, just about anybody can afford to come to our events. We actually charge less than it costs to operate the event itself. And then all the money we raise, we donate it back to the park for use to maintain, and if you would like to, you know, construction of a new park in the future. What we raise is usually pretty, you know, small sums of cash, but, you know, we like to donate that back just to make sure that there is some sort of mechanism and to show that we're kind of promoting back within the town. I've been on the board for Hammond in the construction of their new skate park, Highland, Valparaiso, Crown Point, St. John. I just always try to be a resource for skateboarding. Myself, I've been skateboarding for 17 years and have been able to compete in professional level tournaments, competing for purses over $20,000. It's brought a lot to my life. I grew up in a single parent household, and a lot of other team sports weren't open and accessible to me. Skateboarding, you can truly start with, you know, $50, and if you show up to the park long enough, someone's going to probably give you a board. So it's a low barrier to entry. It's something that's accessible to everybody, and something that I've just been passionate about my whole life. So I wanted to bring and start traveling these events further and further and more. And Michigan City, I actually skated the skate park for many years. And, you know, it was just a great opportunity to kind of take that next step and bring it to this town. So I've worked with Munster, I've worked with Hammond, I've worked with Highland, I've worked with Alsip, Lansing. The Asylum Skate Park in Lake Bluff has been a big supporter. And we always do kind of free hot dogs and water, make sure that everybody who comes gets fed, and usually have some donated music that comes out to some DJs. We, you know, take a lot of help from our sponsors. They are the ones that really kick in all the prizes for this, and they help me run these events. Not a one-man army. It's pretty big a big thing for one person to take on. So thankful to have a whole lot of help doing these. We hope to get there early, wrap up, before evening, and leave this clean skate park and hopefully a whole lot of happy skaters. So this is a part of a 5-stop circuit, and I request your approval. I appreciate being here, and just can't thank you enough for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Zielinski. Any questions or comments from the board or public?
What is the minimum fee for a participant to enter?
We do $5, and that's the funding that then we send back to the town. So if we get, if we get 10 participants, just for the sake of easy math, we'll give you guys $50. If we get 100, we'll give you $500. So the registration fee goes directly back to the town for the maintenance of the skate park, or just earmarked for skate park related objectives.
Yeah, that's reasonable, I think.
With free hot dogs and free water, they get a deal. They get a deal. And the prizes that we've gotten, Grom USA has been a large sponsor. They're a multinational brand. Tech Deck is sponsoring with mini skateboards. We do have a bunch of the shops. Warp Sports are always a big sponsor. Jet Black Skateboards, they're going to be a sponsor. Pitbull Skateboards also a sponsor. So they'll walk away with some gear. It'll be a fun day for everyone.
I see you have insurance. Do you have on-site anybody in case of injury? I mean, I'm not a skateboarder, but I go by the park a lot and I watch them, and I wouldn't even attempt that with a helmet and iron suit on.
So my day job, I've been an emergency medical technician for 12 years. I'm actually the chief operations officer of the Health Ambulance Service, and been a responder for Hurricane Sandy. So I think I got you covered.
That answers my question. Thank you.
This sounds like a win-win situation. The fact that you have all of these sponsors, and with a $5 fee, you're bringing in a lot of young people who can just have fun for the day, possibly win something, and have the opportunity to show off their ability. So I congratulate you on a great operation.
Well, I appreciate it, and I hope that I can prove it to you, and you guys, will make this a more permanent fixture. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you for adding us to your circuit. It's certainly, I appreciate you also hanging in there with us tonight and explaining your event and your purpose. It's quite amazing and quite impressive.
I appreciate it. And if anyone has any questions afterward on my application, there is my cell phone number. Please give me a call, a text anytime if there's anything I can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions or comments, what's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I would move we allow the Driftwood skateboarding competition to take place at Tallman Park on June 12th from approximately 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. of this year.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries.
Is there any new business that we failed to cover or that we missed?
No, sir.
Thank you. Report of officers, Mr. Shin.
Thank you. This evening I'll be reporting.
Thank you. This evening I'll be reporting on the outlying parks, golf courses, parks and recreation maintenance, Parks and Recreation Administration. Outlying parks. This Friday, Barker and Krieger School students will be conducting a recycle drive and ceremony. The faculty has been educating these students in plastic recycling. Traveling to 5 of our outlying parks here in Michigan City, these kids will be collecting debris and celebrating their efforts with lunch and a ribbon cutting ceremony. What a great addition to their curriculum, as this generation is making a large impact in protecting our environment and that of future generations. the golf courses. 95% of our seasonal staff has been rehired. Most of the leagues have started at both courses. Both courses are in great shape. John Marshall and his staff are doing an amazing job. Parks and recreation maintenance. We may be understaffed, but these men and women are dedicated to perform their duties to perfection. With the new director in place, Pat Volz, our supervisors that shared that position, Sandy Kalinowski and Chris Kaufman, have been able to assist in managing daily operations. I am pleased to report this department is making improvements in efficiency and productivity. Sandy and Chris, you have made this change a positive effect on our city's parks and facilities. Nice work. Parks and Rec Administration. I would like to report that youth baseball and events planning and organizing has been a challenge without Michelle Glidden, who is retired as administrative assistant. I would also like to report that Melissa Moore, Sally Williams, and Shannon Eason have been working tirelessly to organize the events and the baseball league while completing their responsibilities of a normal workday. Thank you, ladies. The Youth Baseball League and the events organizers, thank you. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Shen. Any questions from the board? All right, seeing none. I assume no vandalism to report?
There was some vandalism, Mr. Lashford, but our director, Pat Volz, has spray painted over the graffiti. I don't know if everybody likes me to publicize the location.
Oh, thank you. That's well enough. Moving on to planning the liaison reports. First up is a planning commission liaison, Ms. Espar.
Thank you, Mr. Latchford. The Planning Commission did meet on the last Tuesday of April. There was nothing specific to the Park Department, although we did have a similar type proposal, and given the response it had on our Park Department front, I thought I'd mention it. We had a presentation before us from Lisa Pier-Zakowski, the Center Township trustee, requesting the Planning Commission be creative in their solutions for affordable housing and consideration of a tiny home community in our city. It was not specific to Bismarck Hill or anything in relation to the Park Department, but it was a similar proposal, and I just thought I'd mention it.
Thank you. Port Authority Liaison, Mr. Freeze.
Yes, there was a meeting. As a matter of fact, Mayor Perry was there also. The only thing that someone had on the Port Authority had asked about the boat races, and I just clarified the fact that right now, unless COVID changes all this, the races will take place along with a jet ski and a regatta. And otherwise, there wasn't anything really concerning us.
Thank you, Mr. Freeze. And the Zoological Society, Mr. Line.
The Zoological Society has not met as of late. Their next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June the 9th, and hopefully by then we may be able to meet face-to-face. I'm not sure, but we have not met regularly. But I have been told that there are various committees that are working behind the scenes, and obviously running wild for the zoo is something that's going to occur. Still questionable as to what's going to happen with brew at the zoo, but once we have our next meeting, and hopefully that will be on June the 9th, where we'll all be in attendance, I'll be able to report more.
Thank you, Mr. Line. Is there an attorney's report tonight?
No, sir.
Thank you. Any director's reports?
I would just like to quickly mention the Park Department received some small grants. So one of them, or two of them actually, were for litter containment grants, and that's to purchase the metal trash can lids and the hasp kits that keep animals from foraging and litter from blowing out. So that was a $3,800 project. We were awarded a $1,000 NIPSCO environmental grant and $1,900 from Lake Michigan Coastal Program. So we'll complete that project with only $900 coming out of our park budget. And then we also received a Lake Michigan Coastal Program small grant for $1,025, and that's for the stay on our designated trail signage at each of our beach locations that already have markers, so we'll just be adding the small signs below them. So thank you to NIPSCO and Lake Michigan Coastal. I appreciate it.
And thank you for continuing to reach out and find grants to help support our project, Shannon.
Yeah, amen to that. Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
All right, that brings us to Department Finances. Mr. Lang, please.
All righty. Michigan City Park Department claims docket for May the 5th, 2021. Municipal, $44,276.03. Golf petty cash, $608.70. Zoo endowment, none at this time. Bringing total claims for May the 5th, 2021, $44,884.73. And I so move that we meet the claims docket for May the 5th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries.
Payroll number 9 with pay date of April the 23rd, 2021, a total payroll of $45,802.15. And I so move that we make this payroll.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries.
Under gifts and donations, Roar Zufari. Pardon me. Sale of 3 banded armadillos, $3,250. NIPSCO Beach Litter Containment Program, $1,000. And I so move that we accept these gifts and donations.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries.
Under minor transfers, this is from the Zoo Fund 2056.504, a decrease in account 411.014, seasonal wages $490, and an increase in account 413.004, unemployment, for the same amount, $490. So we're not adding or subtracting, we're just moving some finances around, and I so move that we okay this minor transfer.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries.
Under Zoo Endowment, none at this time. Under Board of Works, none at this time. Credit card charges. Credit card charges totaling $209.12 were paid to corporate payment systems, UMA Incorporated, Oasis Phone. This was IT credit card, $33.14. Corporate payment systems, Dunham's Youth Baseball League baseballs, $175.98. And I so move that we accept these credit card charges.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries.
And that so ends the financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Before we move on the agenda, we should probably quickly discuss the recommendations from the Washington Park COVID response team that met today. If you remember, the board approved or ratified the plan which would limit capacity based upon the state's color coding. And after trying to do that this weekend, it proved to be maybe good in theory, but difficult in practice, especially considering the limitation on our staff. So the team met and gave the recommendation that we open the park back up 100% with no capacity limitations until we go to red. And if we hit red, then the recommendation would be to close the park. So I think it would probably be appropriate for this board to acknowledge that and approve the change in the plan. The second thing that was discussed was changing the park hours from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. daily. And that would be another thing, since it falls under the policy of the park, that we should, I recommend that we just, if we choose to follow these recommendations from the response team, that we vote on it tonight and ratify it. If I missed something, please chime in to the other members that were present. If not, open this for questions or comments.
Mr. President?
Yes.
If I may, when you stated the former hours of the Washington Park area, I think you said 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. Didn't you mean 10 p.m.?
Thank you for clarifying.
I'm sorry, I'm not nitpicking.
I have not taken it that way. Thank you very much for clarifying that. That's certainly what I meant. So I guess if there are no other questions or comments.
I just have one comment, Mr. President. Is there any way that we will be able to get this information to the media, the WIMS and WEFM and the Herald Argus, so that people know? I know there have been on occasions in the past people who said, why is there only one entrance in and one exit out? And there was a logical reason for that. But it would be great if we could inform the public as quickly as possible that things are going back to almost normal. That way, I think it would stop some of the consternation that we see on Facebook. It's just a suggestion.
We'll work with the mayor's office tomorrow, get a press release together.
Yes, we'll get one out, Mr. Lang.
Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. And also within the press release, we also discussed still recommending social distancing while coming to Washington Park. So it's still an important piece why we battle COVID, especially in the orange category. All right, so if the board, if we can have a motion to how should I say this? A motion that would allow full capacity until LaPorte County is in red, and then we would close the park. And also that the new hours would be 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily.
I would make a two-part motion. The first, that we approve of the change in the COVID response plan to allow Washington Park to open back up at full capacity unless LaPorte County is put into the red category, in which case the park would be closed. And the second part of my motion would be to also approve the change in park hours to 5 a.m. To 10 p.m.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries.
Right. Any comments from the public tonight? All right. Seeing none, any comments from the board?
I would just like to mention one thing. When Jamie was here, and this be very quick because I realize everyone would like to go and have some dinner. She had mentioned the aggression with the swans, and that was one of the reasons they wanted to make a change there. Some of you may remember that for many years there were two beautiful swans swimming in the pond out at Purdue North Central, which is now obviously Purdue Northwest. There were numerous times in the past when I was teaching there, the LSF building that is very near the pond, students would congregate in the entrance and would not go in. And I would go over and look, why is there a crowd? And the two swans would be at the entranceway, and anyone trying to enter the LSF building, the swans would come after them. And there were numerous times they had to call the campus police on the swans. So I know you go, oh my God, but that actually happened. And so they do get rather aggressive. So I think Jamie has made a wise choice.
Thank you for sharing. Any other comments tonight? If not, we'll make note that our next meeting is Wednesday, May 19th, Wednesday at 5 p.m. We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight.
Great meeting. You are so progressive. You handle so much. Thank you. Great meeting.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Have a safe evening. Bye-bye.